Hello, my name is Michael David Cobb Bowen, and I'm making this video just to help me sort out a few thoughts in my head and get a whole lot of things out that I can't seem to get when I'm looking at a very particular structured interview. Instead, I'd like to talk a little bit about my background and give you an idea of where I'd like to head. I've got about 17, 18 years in business intelligence, data warehousing, EIS, DSS, starting off at Xerox, where I was at Xerox Center and worked for John Adams, building one of the first big LANs in corporate America. Back then I worked with database and those natural kind of systems, and also some 3GLs and 4GLs in database and information systems. And I worked to get client-server paradigm established in that. One of the projects that I was involved in early on was going to be a collaborative project between ourselves and Pilot Software, Xerox, the inventor of the workstation, going to port onto the 6085 workstation a kind of collaborative processing model that Pilot Executive Software was doing. So I was on the team that idea was presented to by David Friend and Hans Volley and I think a guy named McAuliffe, who was the president of Pilot at the time. Internally to Xerox, not very many EIS projects were happening, and so about a year or so later, they gave me a call. Pilot Executive Software did at the time, and I eventually joined their team. I was working as a field consultant. Before the time I actually did accept the job at Pilot, I was looking and talked to a guy named Warren Thornthwaite with Metaphor Computer Systems. I had no idea that John Liddell, or Little, I'm not sure exactly how to spell his name, was also a Xerox employee who had access to Park Technology as well, and went off to build Metaphor. And when I went to Metaphor, Thornthwaite thought I'd be an excellent pre-sales guy, although I actually wanted to be a programmer. I wanted to be a programmer's programmer, get the object-oriented stuff. Of course, since then there haven't been very many, other than the T's, I guess, hardware solutions in the BI space. I went to Pilot Executive Software, again, as a field consultant, although they said, you got pre-sale skills, you sure you don't want to do that? And was there for about 3 or 4 years, finally running their first client-server product group, which was Lightship, over in Cambridge, Mass. And I did the tech support on that. I built some stuff in Oracle. I looked forward for Pink to happen, Intelligent, and all those kinds of things as I got into Unix, but that didn't happen. And I wanted to do multimedia. I wanted to do rich media in the business intelligence space. I wanted to get more kinds of stuff. At any rate, it became more interesting to deal with the multidimensional database, and so I worked with the one that came from Thorny and I that was acquired through John Kopke, and that was pretty interesting stuff. Although the internals weren't clear and there was no API to it, Lightship Server was kind of groundbreaking product. I had been doing, because I had to learn DB2 before I did that back in '90. And I had been doing star schemas, and I had been building them for about 4 or 5 years before I actually heard the term star schema used. After I left Pilot Software, I got married and moved down to Atlanta, did a few more interviewing things, and I ended up talking to people at Intergraph because I was looking at a little document management. The web hadn't really sprung up very well, but it was starting, and I was very interested in the web, since I had a friend at Media Lab named George Brooks, or Kevin Brooks, I'm sorry, and they showed me Mosaic, and I talked, oh yeah, I'm an old Xerox head, and blah, blah, blah. I was also, at the time, somewhere in '91 about there, invited to be a train-the-trainer and go to Redmond and work with Microsoft. They had this thing called Visual Basic, and I didn't take it seriously. I said, Power Builder will eat your lunch. And I kind of ticked off the Microsoft guy and never got a call back from them. Anyway, I was kind of interested in the Apple, the Quadra, because I had built a marketing system for Philip Morris, and this was kind of one of my first major $1 million projects back in '91 or '92, thereabouts. and then I went over to CPC and did a similar one, just breaking everything that the IBM mainframes could handle in DB2 at the time for real-time multi-dimensional queries. I heard. Well, I never did go over all the way to Teradata, and perhaps that was an error. But I was very interested in the GUI stuff, being a Xerox person. I interviewed with Sybase, and they said you should go into pre-sales. And once again, I had not yet worked with really good, high-quality, professional salespeople, so I didn't really understand the ethics of software sales. And I was more of a, hobbit kind of geeky guy at the time, so I didn't mind being the guy in the basement coding. I went to Arbor Software in '96, following the footsteps of Dyke Henson, who was one of the smartest guys I knew, who also understood the market as well, which is kind of unusual, a business and market person who knows the technology. And started doing some pre-sales finally with them, and I actually enjoyed it. And so I learned under a guy named Dan Fishback, who was really sharp, and I really came to admire the Arbor sales staff. And by '97, went over full-time to do that kind of thing. Now, prior to that, since not many people use multidimensional technology, there wasn't a very clear career path for a guy like me who kind of mastered it. There weren't very large projects with financial planning and the kinds of things that we could do with multidimensional databases, although we did go to Tillinghast Towers Perrin, and they wanted a 23-dimensional model, and we couldn't do anything with that, with 1 gigabyte. And back in '96, it was just impossible. So we had to tell them, I'm sorry, we have to wait till the technology catches up. But I have always been on the cutting edge of multidimensional database technology, and I like the back-end stuff, back-end efficiencies. I did actually get a chance to go to ComEd, where they had a Sun shop, and they were very accustomed to debugging software all the way down to checking semaphores and finding out how many fetches were done from memory and stuff like that. So I did learn a little bit on how to debug Solaris memory utilization, which was really fun. And I like to get down to that level of technical detail when I'm getting to multidimensional database queries. And the nice thing about Essbase was that a lot of that stuff was very clear, and you could see the API and you could understand fundamentally what was going on, so you could do some tuning and mapping memory and stuff like that with the virtual memory model that came out in version 4. So I continued up the path, sticking close to the data warehouse tool set within the Hyperion, now the merged company. I thought about considering going over to sales full-time because I like making money, and I like objective kinds of career goals. And that didn't happen because of the merger, and everybody was fighting over the same territories, which was really horrendous. It's one of the tough things that went on in the merger. So I continued on the pre-sales path, working with a guy named Dan Goodall, John Kondo, Jill Horn, some really sharp folks, a guy named Beitler. And ultimately, with Keen Hankins, we sold the 3Com deal, which was the largest deal that Hyperion had made to that date. There was one with Sears, but I think Keen Hankins that year got Salesman of the Year, and he got the Porsche. And so we went to Ponte Vedra and had a lot of Opus 1 that year. So I really enjoyed sales. I had done most of the technical stuff. I'd run a lot of trials as a senior pre-sales guy, and I was kind of the go-to guy on the technology side. And soon Dan Drucker, who was in marketing, got the go-ahead from the CEO to start a new division, which we branded the ECRM division. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some multiple, since we had a great sales force and we could sell multidimensional technology, we wanted to do more than just a follow-on to Pillar and a follow-on to Enterprise. We wanted to build some multi-dimensional applications, which probably just about now makes sense in the BPM space. People are ready to look at analytical applications and applications of multi-dimensional technology. Speaking of which, one of the things that I got a chance to do was work with people at I2 Technologies over in Las Colinas and make the first application of multi-dimensional database technology in conjunction with supply chain. And supply chain actually had some very interesting dilemmas with regard to modeling a bill of materials, and so that the parent members own themselves and they own the child as well, the children as well. And that was one of the only multi-dimensional models that I couldn't get to do exactly everything I wanted it to do. It turns out, as a matter of fact, that Microsoft Analysis Services handles that as well. So there's two buckets at a parent, and you can access either bucket. At any rate, having done the advanced systems and sold some of the best systems in the straight BPM world, which was basically planning and consolidations and that kind of reporting stuff, I went over to the ECRM division. I also did some work in Europe, but in the ECRM division, my primary responsibility was for worldwide business development. So I was kind of a product guru out there, spreading the good word about the kinds of applications we could use, that we could build using web technology. It was fairly new. We were trying to do the thin client thing, and regular database technology and multi-dimensional database technology. I always kind of wanted to do a triple, a trifecta, and do object-oriented databases as well, and build a company that could do any kind of data modeling that the enterprise software space could need, and doing those things. But that never materialized. But maybe one day it will. So this was about 98, 99. And then we were partners with IBM, did a lot of joint selling with IBM, with CGE&Y. I guess Capgemini is now separate from Ernst & Young. But basically with the Big Five before the scandal that broke up Anderson. And so I did a lot of high-level messaging. I understood marketing a lot better. I understood product development a little bit better. Getting exposure to the kinds of things that go into building a product before you build applications with the product or sell the product. That was a really good and instructional thing. I came up with the sales methodology, and so I organized the sales force. I helped train some of the IBM folks that we were doing some joint deals with. I was involved with a thing that we did with Siebel to get Siebel Analytics to use the Hyperion platform, although that fell through. And signed some pre-beta customers. So one of my favorite stories from that period was I was able to sell a $500,000 of software that was an alpha. I won't name the client, but I hope they're still happy. So we built website analysis, CRM analysis, field services analysis, and some other products. But Hyperion, in the end, decided they were going to focus on branding and not build a lot of products that the marketplace wasn't sure what to do with. So I was a little bit too far on the cutting edge, and that division of Hyperion got cut. So I went back to the basics and went back into business for myself, as I had been prior to joining Arbor, and did some contracting. At this particular point, which was 2001, I was really interested in security, and I was really interested in doing some more Unix stuff. So I happened to get a contract over in Pasadena, California, for a guy named Daryl Monago at Kaiser Permanente IT. And he ran a very nice shop, a great project manager, and we put together something, put a front end for their ABT workbench, and then did some back-end scripting, and fell in love with Corn Shell all over again, and Perl. And I actually did some JavaScript in that too, because I had to move cookies back and forth. But I basically, around September 11th, had reverted to pure geek mode instead of worldwide business development blue shirt wearing guy. And it was really fun on that side to do the other side of the business, where as a sales guy, I was telling the same thing to all different kinds of people and trying to get their solution to fit in my box and my framework. Whereas a tech guy, I was doing all different kinds of things with the same people, and it was a different kind of camaraderie, and I enjoyed that for a while. So I did some subcontracting and basic S-based backend. Got some data management skills, essentially working closely and doing hand-built ETL with large data warehouses. And so by the time I was done, I had built somewhere around 100, 120 different data marts for all kinds of customers around the country. At some point, I started, getting paid a lot for work that I thought was boring. And I found myself working with PwC people and Deloitte people, and they had manpower and I did not. It was me, and so I said, man, if I had a team, I could really do some big things. So, although I love the mid-market and it was very good to me, I decided to go back up-market. So I went to join Leah Whalen and Jerry Villamil at AnswerThink because they had started Beacon Analytics after the merger, and they were some of the premier S-based consultants. And I'm still digging the multi-dimensional thing. By the way, I did play with Cognos a little bit. I did play with Brio a little bit, and I did play with Informatica a little bit. But those versions are so old it probably doesn't apply anymore. So I joined AnswerThink in the spring of 2005 after 4 years of consulting independent contracting. And from that point, I just wanted to go big. I said, just give me the biggest clients you have, give me the biggest RFPs. And so, interestingly enough, I wound up back at Nissan. And there we delivered something on the order of 32 data marts in a North American regional data warehouse, which is very cool, sourced by SAP, IBM, Regatta stuff, DB2. So again, I had really finessed the back-end stuff and managed the master data very well. So that was a really nice project. Then we did, simultaneously, I was working an RFP for Boeing and also dealing with 64-bit computing, which was fairly new at the time in the multidimensional world. And I got a chance to work on a Superdome at HP in Cupertino to prove out the fact that we could build this model. This model that I architected was to handle something on the order of 15,000 separate databases, each 5, 7, 10 dimensions, and put those on a mainframe cluster and allow multiple users, 5,000 users, to access and build and report. And that took about 18 months to design and go through the RFP process, which we won. The purchase wasn't ultimately made, but it was a good long time for me to spend looking at the highest level of multidimensional distributed database systems that I think had ever been considered up to that point. So it was nice for me to do a different kind of world-class thing. When I was back in the ECRM, I got a chance to go to Mexico, I got a chance to go to London, I got a chance to go to Milan, and that was that kind of international thing. This was kind of a world-class thing as well. So I had essentially proved to myself, and I think to all concerned who would pay attention to such things, that I was a top practitioner and an architect in understanding the business case for making really sophisticated multidimensional database systems, marting out of warehouses or any of that stuff. So the other thing that was interesting to me was security. And I had only had 1 or 2 customers that actually implemented even the C2 level excuse me, of security on these databases. And it's always been curious to me why enterprise CPM systems have not done so much in terms of security, where actually the name of the server was masked and the user ID was masked, and etc., and maybe packets encrypted on the way. But it's possible that BI just doesn't deal so much with secure data, and an average amount of security is okay. At any rate, I got back in touch because I did kind of divert over in my own company to do a little Microsoft Analysis Services and Pro Clarity. Made some friends over there. Did some work with those guys. And then back into the fold. Did some presentations at Solutions, as I try to do every time that I can. And talked to some of the engineers in Hyperion. And it was fun. I really wanted to do some advanced stuff. Didn't get an opportunity to do as much as I would have liked. And I don't know exactly what the reason is for that. I think perhaps a certain size of company, external consulting, is not going to have the kind of attention that perhaps an internal consulting organization might have. So that's a hat tip to John Parisi. Next, I had an opportunity that I couldn't pass up, which was to work at a startup. It wasn't actually a startup, an old company that was ready to get into startup mode. And in last summer, I took a job as a VP of Services for a small company called Solver, and we moved on to the other platform, Performance Point, which was the new entry of Microsoft into this BPM field. And it was a very exciting and very interesting job. But in the end, it turned out that they were not going to expand. They wouldn't necessarily need a VP. They maybe needed, a couple more project managers, senior project managers. And since they didn't really have outside funding, their path to growth was going to be a little bit slower. I haven't followed back with the CEO to talk about all that, so that's kind of my unofficial position. I don't know officially what Solver is saying these days. At any rate, I'm free now. I'm back on my own, and I tell you what really, really interests me now is touchscreen computing. So here's my big idea, and I think it's where BI is going and should go in two directions. There's two things that scare me. That is, they frighten me if somebody else will do them and I won't be a part of it. The first is advanced visualization. I think advanced visualization is a great idea, and we have to break out of the paradigm that we've looked at spreadsheets and Pareto charts and bar charts and line charts and that kind of stuff. There's so much more that can be done in terms of visualization. The second is a UI thing as well, which is touchscreen. Multitouch, like Jefferson Han, I think is his last name, has done with Perspective Pixel, and he was at the TED conference. Everybody sees the YouTube. And I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be great when we have 50-inch, 60-inch, 70-inch panels, flat panels on an executive wall where you can have multiple visualizations and control of near real-time BI information. Widgets, I love the widgets that Hyperion built that I saw at Solutions the time before last, and I really like the idea that it's breaking out of the same visual programming paradigm that was started at the beginning of client server with the Power Builder stuff. I mean, you can make Power Builder stuff look exactly like the thin client stuff that's in the forefront of BI today. I'm also interested to know what VLDB and parallelization is going to do in multidimensional land. We always say that we don't need that scale, but it is still fascinating and surprising to me that a lot of the stuff that we do is not instantaneous. That just calculating a dense cube or a sparse cube takes so much time. And so I'm hoping that the engineers at Oracle have worked out the ASO model, because I think they're a little bit ahead of the guys at Microsoft, quite frankly. I think they're maybe more than a little bit ahead. But applying, maybe some Britton Lee ideas and Teradata ideas, which is get some more hardware on this problem, and scale up, rather the way that Google has with Bigtable and HTable and Hadoop and that MapReduce kind of stuff, where you just get some parallelization, because all the amount of data that people really want to see is just a small amount, except that a lot of it has to go through a lot of calculations. And it seems to me that if you can do a 2-pass calculation on a single processor, you can do 2 1-pass calculations. Well, maybe not. I'm sure there's some interesting engineering that could go on if people could find a way to get this stuff to market. And I think that's probably one of my skills, which is I can understand the deep technology, I can understand the architect, I can architect a solution, I can sell a solution, I can bring new technologies to market, and I can deal with the biggest clients you have. So that's the kind of stuff that I'd like to do. I think it's only going to be done at a couple places. Unfortunately, I thought it was going to be done at Microsoft. Unfortunately, they're more of a technology company than a product company, so they're not necessarily aligned to do that kind of thing. And I didn't recognize, even though I had only a short period of time to see somebody who could really lead that charge and bring customers in and bring partners in and get that really going with a high degree of investment. And Microsoft is new to the high-end enterprise space. Everybody knows that. So perhaps SAP can do this. Perhaps Oracle can do this. I'm sure either of them could do it if they were dedicated to do so. So I'm very interested in, I've got my new iPod Touch here. So I'm very interested to see what Apple or anybody can do in terms of revolutionizing the UI that executives and information consumers of analytical data might consume, either through completely new visualization paradigms or updating the current thin client thing, which has been going on for the past 10 years. I'm very interested, like I said, in multitouch. I'm very interested in parallelization and the grid application of multidimensional databases. I'm very interested in expanding BPM beyond into really operational OLAP that we've been talking about. I'm very interested in the Teradata collaborative with Oracle, if that's still going on, not sure, since the acquisition. And I want to be a part of that. And if I'm going to do BI, I have to do BI big. I have to do it just really at the highest level. I've got many, many years in this, and this is what I think I'm destined to do. But I have another good idea too, if you happen to have a couple $1 million and a couple of years to develop it. But that has to do with democracy and voting, and that's a completely different kind of thing. I'm also interested in identity, excuse me, because my overarching thing is knowledge management and how you use different technologies to inform people about the regime of understanding that they should have. So anybody who understands BPM understands that it's a full loop. I like Ron Diamond and his blog, the kinds of things that he's saying there in terms of the context of where it's going to give productivity in the business. But I think there's a lot of technologies that nobody has really had a chance to assimilate into the kinds of systems that actually can be done. I spent a lot of time in the web. In fact, there's another interesting point, which is that after I left Hyperion and I wasn't using 1,600 minutes of my cell phone, I had nobody to talk to. So I started a blog, I started writing online, and that has ultimately resulted in a different kind of popularity for me, talking about politics and other compelling cultural subjects. It's got me a gig part-time on NPR, so I'm something of a commentator as well. And I'm interested, quite frankly, in how people change their political ideas given multiple approaches to understanding and learning. There's stuff that you can learn from webs. There's stuff that you can learn from group blogs. There's stuff that you can learn from Wiki. There's stuff that you can learn from YouTube. And there's stuff that you can learn from radio. And what happens when you put all of those kinds of things together, and then some of it goes on to your iPod Touch, or some of it goes on to your Trio. I would love somebody to build both of these into one thing. Thank you. The next generation iPod looks like the closest thing to it, but Palm, if they had done the Life Drive and put 20 gig drive in that thing as much as an iPod, Palm OS would have been a different kind of beast. But I digress. I'm very interested in what happens when we replace this wallet with other kinds of information, and your identity changes, and it's something that goes with you. Having worked in virtual corporations for a long time, saying be at this GPS location on this particular date and build this system, and here's the key that you need to get in. That's all very interesting stuff to me. So I'm looking to work with a well-funded organization with some graybeards, people who've been around, who know how to work their way through this. I want to work at the highest levels of technology. and I want you to give me a call. So you can reach me. This is professional stuff at cubegeek.com, which I have not maintained as well as I probably should, and I haven't been writing white papers. But then again, I haven't had an incentive to write white papers. And the kind of stuff that I've been saying here, I can go into detail about and put all kinds of other things together. So in the short term, it's 2008. I'm going to be doing some contracts and kind of pedestrian, multi-dimensional data marketing and data warehouse work until I can get the right people to pay attention to this video, which states the kinds of things that aren't explicitly stated on resumes, and give you an idea of which direction I'm going to go. Venture capital in Silicon Valley, that might be interesting too. But I like some people who are thoughtful, considerate, in this for the long term, trying to be world class, not particularly egotistical, but more scientific, very reasonable capitalists that understand that you can't get anything done without money, and that you have to fund a world class project very well. I guess all of that's rather obvious and academic. The question is, who's going to do it? Who's got the vision? Who's got the patience? Who's got the funding? And who can formulate a brain trust and lead that to really change and do some things that need to be done, because the implications in here go far beyond what happens in the boardroom. This stuff is going to trickle down and ultimately change the way that we interact. By the way, I'm a big gamer. I'm a console gamer, not a PC gamer. PCs, I can't even envision gaming on them. They're workplaces. But the console, the paradigms on video consoles and digital film are very impressive, and I think we can add some cinematics and really enhance the user experience and really get more immersive in that kind of thing, so that we can describe a whole business really with as many instructions as you have on this. So interestingly enough, the other thing, and I'll close with this, since I've had a little bit of time off this week, I just finished ripping a CD there. I went to Beverly Hills, and what I was going to do is walk around and go into the shops and chat up the shop owners to find out where their clients get their home theaters built. And I've always had a fascination with audio technology. So one of these days, when I have a little extra spare change, I'm going to buy an old SAE parametric equalizer off of eBay, because I've seen it out there, and maybe some beverage speakers. But I really will dig the separate components and high-end stereo. I used to sell it when I was a kid. But I'm saying, if I was Larry Ellison, if I was Steve Jobs, well, I guess it's obvious if I was Steve Jobs, what I would do to build up my thing. And I have to really give props to my boy Charles Isbell at Georgia Tech, the AI researcher. He is right. I really do like the Apple interface, and it's finally come around to the point where I can really buy into that. And part of it was I priced myself out of Mac Pro G5, $18,000, and I wasn't even finished yet. So if you had the ultimate system, what kinds of things would you need? When does the ultimate consumer of electronics, when you have multiple data paradigms to work with? I mean, for me, I'm too big for anything else but Gmail. So I have to use Gmail because I own 6 or 7 domains, and I get 200, 300 pieces of mail a day. And I like Nick. Is it Nick Park, who did Fire Something, which was a very nice spam filter for Eudora, but I haven't used Eudora in several years, and especially not since Gmail's come out. So when I have my own couple terabytes on my home network and I have my own widescreen, where would I go to get the ultimate experience? And that's the whale buyer, the guy who owns a yacht, the guy who drives a Porsche, the guy who wants ultimate performance, and hopefully these are CEOs of Fortune 1000. What do they want in their ultimate system? and how can they integrate their home system with their office system. Because I've been traveling on the road for years, and this is a problem that's vexed me. I mean, I have, just like in Will Smith and I Am Legend, those Porsche design USB external drives that you back up 6 ways, and what is the ultimate system, and how do you build it, and what do you put on it, and how do you secure it? This is where EIS has to go. It has to go beyond, the simple paradigms, as I said. And that's where I'm interested in taking my career, and I'm interested in doing that kind of work. So if this kind of stuff is rather appealing to you, if it stirs up some juices, and this one is not talking about X Republic, so you can Google X Republic and see what that's all about. That's another world-changing kind of thing. But this is about information management of the future, building on the base of the best practices of business intelligence for the past 15, 16 years that I've been in it, 18, depending, yeah. So I started in 1990 building star schemas, so that's when I would say my official started. And we can do some business together. So reach me at cubegeek.com. All the mail comes to my Gmail and Bowen at Gmail, and we'll work something out. Peace.